Good evening. I hope you're all able to hear me. I'm going to begin with my class right now. Good evening, everyone. Maybe I should say good afternoon. Yes, I'm able to hear myself now. I think I should say good afternoon because it's pretty much early afternoon now, just 1:30 p.m. right now. PM right. Right, so welcome everybody to unacademy.com, India's largest e-learning platform. Just a couple of days to go, of course, for IPL, and we, of course, will be the associate sponsors in it. As usual, I'm going to take your newspaper session, which, of course, I conduct every day, today as well, no exception in that. Today is, in fact, the birthday of our Prime Minister, so many wishes to him from my side and from the side of Unacademy as well. So, as usual, I'm going to start with the Hindu newspaper, which is your favorite, and of course, right on top, there are birthday wishes from the Hindu as well. Uh, well, uh, right. So, as I said, we are the largest online learning platform in India. This is a brief profile of myself. My name is Aritro Dasgupta. I, of course, have been with Unacademy taking classes for more than 2 months now. Overall, I've got a decade's experience. Yeah, so I finished my MBA about a decade back at the Indian Institute of Forest Management in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. My MBA was in the field of conservation and livelihood. I can see somebody else is also watching the session right now. So whoever it is, please give a say something. It'll be great to interact. You can write on the chat window on the right hand side. After completing my MBA, I've been working for about a decade in the areas of, it's a bit more than a decade now, in the areas of teaching, training, strategy, consulting, and in content writing. My experience has predominantly been in India, but I've also worked in the Middle East and been published in the USA. Last 5 years, which is basically a little over half my career, I've been engaged specifically with the coaching industry. Overall, my entire experience has been in education, but as I said, about half of that has been in the coaching segment. And toppers to several leading exams such as CAT, CLAT, DOJAT, etc., have been my students during this period. That has, of course, has been for offline classes. I'm pretty confident this year me and my team will ace it for on online classes as well, right? So this is all you will receive from the Unacademy platform. First of all, there are daily live classes. So I have been conducting classes for quite a while. You can subscribe to our channel, Crack Management Exams, and I'll also share my Telegram channel with you guys so that you can join in. There are live tests and quizzes. So once you enroll for the class, there will be um, quizzes. So in fact, on the right hand side, there's the chat window. So this is what I use to ask students question often in my class. The pedagogy has been set at the head office. So your entire preparation is in line with the real time preps. And of course, you receive unlimited access. The moment you are enrolled with our platform, you need not worry. The rest of your study will take place in a certain manner. Right, so this is a list of some of our top educators. This is a few more educators, but just to show you how you will receive the notifications for the different classes. This is meanwhile is a sample of how you receive notifications for your batches. There can be two kinds of batches. जैसे कि नीचे it ऊपर जो है that is entire batch, नीचे is a single course. So that course can be for let's say for grammar or anything else. So of course that will be taken by an individual faculty. Whereas ऊपर जो आप देख रहे हैं, that's a list of educators who will go through the entire syllabus. Even if you miss a live class, you can always see recordings. You can even download sessions. All you need is a mobile, a PC, or a tablet, to enjoy these sessions. My class does not require much of calculation, so that is something which you can always use for you can always listen to it anytime, because as I said, there aren't any complex calculations. Right, there is no language barrier. We Because we teach in 16 different languages, including courses in Tamil and Malayalam. So even if you're not proficient in English, that is not going to be a barrier. You may interact with your educator anytime you want to get your doubts cleared. मैंने आपको दिखाया था right hand side when there's the chat window. Make full use of that. You may also answer live polls. So एक तो है यहाँ पे, apart from this on unacademy.com as well, we have the opportunity to take live polls. What else is the advantage? Let's take a quick look. There are live tests and quizzes at all times. So one is something which we are giving. Apart from that, you also have centralized mocks, which are conducted by the head office of Unacademy. तो उसमें पूरा syllabus आता है, उस हिसाब से you need to perform. There's a detailed report and analysis you receive from the test that you've taken, so that you know what is the average time spent per question. You also get detailed PDFs and learning material. For instance, so whatever I'll be teaching in today's class, there is not much of a detailed PDF because the newspaper itself is the PDF. But the morning class today, if you guys recall, we did have a detailed session which was on the business affairs. तो उसमें we did have PDF, तो वो सब आप download कर सकते हो. Again, YouTube में it is possible of course, but it's much better on unacademy.com. So do take up those as well. I have a special class today scheduled at 4 p.m. So see you all at that time on unacademy.com. This is my code at the bottom. Do make use of this. You will receive a flat 10% off when you make use of this. Just go through each of these pointers. You will clearly understand that the longer term a course you take, the lesser you need to pay on a per capita basis. इसको पढ़ लीजिए, उसके बाद I will start with the meat of today's class. ठीक है, I think done. You have gone through this. So I'm now done more or less with the introduction on Unacademy. Now I will start with the session proper. So as I said, today's newspaper, which is 17th of September, I'm gonna start analyzing today. Right, a very good friend of mine's birthday as well today, so 17th September, good day for me. Okay, so let me start first of all. So on top we have this article. This is very important for you guys, and I think I have told you before. We've discussed the potential coronavirus vaccine several times on this show, and we have in particular discussed both the Indian examples such as Covaxin by Bharat Biotech and this one by Serum Institute of India. I have also discussed the Russian vaccine. So today, these two topics are actually converging because the Russian potential vaccine, I'll use the word potential vaccine because it has not got 100% approval globally. But whatever is this so-called vaccine, and hope it works, will be that should be available in India as well, not for manufacturing but for distribution. So okay, let's put it this way. The Russian vaccine known as Sputnik 5. This is a reference to the Russian golden age of space exploration. Rather, that was the Soviet era dominated by Russia in the 1950s and 60s when USSR was in a space race versus the USA. So it has been named Sputnik 5 and it is being developed by the Gamaleya Institute, which is based in Moscow. And right? And so they have just done the development. There's a particular company, I can't recall, is it Rosneft? Anyway, so there is a Russian company which will be producing it mass from January onwards. Let me give you the name of that Russian company. Just forgetting, my mistake. So anyway, Gamaleya Institute is the research body, but there is also a manufacturer of this thing, mass manufacturer. So they will start manufacturing most likely from January, so that millions of doses can be prepared over the next couple of months. Uh, ठीक है, let me quickly check the name of that company because it just feels so incomplete to have left this at halfway. Just give me a one moment. Russian company manufacturing COVID-19 vaccine. Anyway, it's taking a bit of time in locating this. I'll get back to you. So anyway, this Russian company, they are in talks now with Dr. Reddy's, which is an Indian company, for marketing the product in India as well. Assuming it all goes right and this is registered as a vaccine. Now, just because Russia says India will not blindly accept, India will also need to do its own tests. So there is a particular Russian government, semi-government board called the RDIF, or the Russian Direct Investment Fund, which is going to do the investment, which actually is the body that regulates all kind of investments from Russia to outside the country. And what they are going to do, one of the things is directing this. So Dr. Reddy's has been chosen as the Indian collaborator, which will be selling within India. However, manufacturing rights have not yet been discussed. GVK Prasad is the name of the president and also acting managing director of Dr. Reddy's. So he has confirmed this thing in a statement. In fact, today morning itself, we were talking about Mr. Reddy because you know his name, because I did that session on business affairs, so I was taking you through the list of CEOs and MDs, तो वहीं पे उनका नाम आया था. Right, if it goes wrong, Ashmita, welcome, good to have you on board. If it goes wrong, things can become rather dicey. I fully understand, which is why we are right now going to take up a more detailed study of the same. Uh, so the thing which is really curious about this Russian potential vaccine is that not many scientific journals, especially the peer-based journals, they have not really published the findings as yet, which is really strange. Usually, when such groundbreaking developments are made, they are actually published in a number of different places, especially the academic journals in the universities, peer-reviewed journals. वो अभी तक नहीं हुआ. That is what has put this under a lot of strain. Right. India did have, if I look at the viral tracker of the newspaper, India had more than 90,000 cases yesterday, as has been the trend for a while now. In fact, India completed its last million cases in 11 days only, which is a fraction of the amount it took. Initially, it was 169 days for the first million, but we took only 11 days for the fifth million to take place. So yesterday there were 94,000 cases, which is 2.2% more than what was the day before. And in fact, deaths in the last 7 days has been again more than 1,000, which is 1.4% more than the 7 days prior to this. Among all these cases which we are observing, more than 90,000 cases, a record 4,473 were held in Delhi yesterday. Delhi yesterday also went through its second highest number of tests in a day. Day before was the record with 66,000 something cases tests done. Yesterday, tests were 62,000. 593 to be precise. Out of that, 4,473 have been confirmed positive for COVID-19. So this is a record day for Delhi in terms of number of cases. Um, quite sadly, while we are celebrating the birthday of our Prime Minister, one of his key ministers, Shri Nitin Gadkari, has tested positive for COVID-19. So we are all really hoping that he does get back to full fitness soon. The Serum Institute of India, I had spoken to you earlier about this organization, which is run by the Poonawalla brothers, Adar Poonawalla and Cyrus Poonawalla. So the Serum Institute has been allowed trials for COVID-19. Serum Institute, you might remember, they are a partner to the Oxford University vaccine and the AstraZeneca pharmaceutical company for within India, but that had been halted in between because the one of those thousands of people who have been who are volunteers in the third phase of the vaccine trials showed uh, unsafe symptoms, which is why it was halted for several days. But now that has been uh, sort of understood that out of thousands of cases there will be one or two reversals, so not nothing to be too worried about. So the trials have restarted, right? So hopefully, if there are now three possible options, one is Covaxin, which is by Bharat Biotech, another is this one by the Serum Institute of India in collaboration with AstraZeneca and Oxford, and there's the third, which is the Russian vaccine. That name of that Russian company is still troubling me. Just can't mm, I don't know. Anyway, uh, China, yesterday, Mr. Rajnath Singh, our defense minister, spoke out about the border situation with China at the LAC, which is the line of actual control. China, however, claims that there has been no infiltration for the past 6 months, at least, maybe more. Mm, the Union Ministry for Railways, there was earlier this report that there was no proper data on the migrant labor crisis, but now worrying data has been released by the Ministry of Railways, and it seems 97 people had died on the various Shramik specials. Shramik specials were were the trains that were specially launched to carry the laborers uh, who had lost their jobs in the big cities and who were returning to their hometowns in the labor supplying states such as Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh. These were the major labor exporting states. So when they were going back, it seems 97 people died on board itself. That is quite a shocking case. At the bottom of the first page, there is also this report on a certain discrepancy in one of the states in India, which is Tamil Nadu, which of course is in the deep south. So there is a sort of mismatch in the data which has been published, which is by two different bodies. One is the HFW, which is the Health and Family Welfare Department, part of the Tamil Nadu government, and the other is the official data which has been released by the government of Tamil Nadu. So these two do not match. There is in fact a difference of over 26,000 cases uh, if you compare these two data. So major difference between what is in the internal report of the organization versus what has been released to the media, right? And this has been attributed by the state's health secretary to some duplication. Some errors have entries have been duplicated, have been entered twice. That is what the health secretary has mentioned. So this data has been actually retrieved from hospitals, CHCs, which are COVID health centers, also from COVID care centers or CCCs, and also those people who are in home isolation. There is sad news from the world of cultural research, where one of the doyens of this field, she's considered a matriarch because of her immense contribution to the field of cultural research. Her name is Kapila Vatsyayan. She passed away yesterday at the age of 92. She passed away peacefully in Delhi in her Gulmohar enclave residence. She had was suffering from usual age-related problems, not connected to COVID-19 as such. And in fact, she's a former recipient of the Padma Vibhushan Award, which is the second highest civilian honor in India, immediately after the Bharat Ratna. So it's the highest of the Padma Awards. Right, the Babri Masjid demolition case will now be heard by the Supreme Court on 30th September. This is meanwhile is not the same as the Ram Mandir case, because Ram Mandir is about new construction. This is about the old demolition. So this will be heard on 30th of September. Right. Okay. Now, moving on to the local pages, there is some news from, Delhi travelers will be really happy that the metro is going to have yet another expansion. I think I've discussed with you earlier about this, that there is a fourth stage of Delhi metro which is going to take place very soon. The constructions will start. So right now, most of the paperwork is being put in together. There are actually three stretches which will be built. Two of them are merely extensions of the existing pink line and magenta lines, which are both circular. They were inaugurated only a couple of years back, I think 2018. They were part of the phase three, but a fresh line is also set to be. I had assumed that all the colors in the rainbow have finished. इतने सारे रंग use हो गए, but I think एक रंग बाकी है. So this has been named as the Silver Line, and this will be between Tughlakabad, which is in south east Delhi, till Aero City, which is in the southwest towards the center of the city. So this will be a 20-kilometer corridor covering 15 stations. The other two, as I said, will be merely extensions. The pink line will have 8 more stations, which will stretch for 12 kilometers length, while the magenta will have a much larger expansion worth 29 kilometers length and covering 25 stations along the way. You might be aware, last couple of days we have been discussing about some strikes in Delhi University, especially by DUTA. DUTA stands for Delhi University Teachers Association. They have gone on for they've gone on strike because of a lot of funds which are pending, salaries that have not been paid, especially to the non-teaching staff. So there's also a Karamchari union which looks into the non-teaching staff. So Manish Sisodia, the Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi, he's from the Aam Aadmi Party. He has gone through this preliminary audit report, and he says that a lot of DU colleges may not be showing the right funds, and if the right funds are shown, then this can actually be taken care of. He says that large sums are there in fixed deposits. So there is a need for a complete audit to understand the exact situation. Right, moving ahead further, the Court of Delhi, the High Court in Delhi, has asked the Delhi government to shore up on RT-PCR tests. RT-PCR is generally considered a more reliable method of testing, because at this point, a lot of RAT tests have taken place. RAT is rapid antibody testing, and the court says that a lot of the results are not really accurate. They are accurate only up to 60%, which is actually not so impressive at all. Which means 2 out of every 5 results will be inaccurate. That just doesn't work up. So the government has said that the RT-PCR facilities will need to be ramped up. Last couple of days, I've also been discussing with you guys one of the burning issues, which is related to the railway stations in Delhi, near which a lot of people have been staying through unregulated housing, which is through JJ clusters or Jhuggi Jhopri clusters. And there was this court order which came out recently, led by one of the justices. As per the report, these slums were to be demolished. And why did this order come up? Because there was first a complaint by the Environment Department citing pollution. There are safety concerns for the people themselves and, of course, the trains as well. However, the court order did not give any rehabilitation of the people people whose slums would be broken down. So a lot of political issues did take place. The Congress leader, Mr. Ajay Makan, he filed a counter affidavit against this thing. There's also a hunger strike by a leader from the CPIML Communist Party of India, Marxist-Leninist. Uh, there was also another uh, the BJP then confirmed that the opposition leader, Mr. Bidhuri, who's the leader of the opposition in the Delhi Assembly, he spoke about 52,000 flats being available. But now I think officially the government of Delhi has also confirmed. So the Delhi Urban Development Minister, Shri Satyendra Jain, he has also confirmed that there are 40,000 vacant flats where these people can be rehabilitated. So just hoping that this can be resolved. We just now had this terrible humanitarian crisis with the migrant labor issue, and a lot of these people who stay in jhuggi jhopris around railway stations, they're of course among the poorest. Let's not get politics in between this. Let's just hope these people can be rehabilitated safely. At the same time, we probably do need, I mean, let us respect the decision of the court, because that was also taken with a positive viewpoint, because obviously it can lead to risk for the people, their environmental issues because of open defecation that can often take place on the railway tracks. The railways also can't expand well, because a lot of these tracks, they require expansion at times, so that they can move more smoothly. Uh, Now, there is one really interesting initiative which has come out of the Delhi government, and I think you might be aware. Most people who stayed in Delhi or in North India, they would be aware that every year during the winter, Delhi gets, uh, shall we say, covered with huge quantities of smog, which is smoke and fog, especially during the winters. One of the key causes of that has been identified as stubble burning in the states of Punjab and Haryana. So what exactly is stubble burning? So basically, Punjab and Haryana, if you see, post the Green Revolution, they have had this system where mm, where you have dual cropping every year, and dual cropping not just any crops, but especially the two major cereals, which is rice and wheat, which basically paddy in the raw form, and wheat. Wheat is a winter crop. It is planted during, say, November, December, and it is harvested in roughly March. You can say springtime, the onset of the spring. On the other hand, rice is a summer crop. It is planted just after spring, and it is harvested sometime around the autumn period. It can also be planted during the main summer period, because it does require a lot of rain and standing water. Uh, Now in Punjab, what has happened due to Punjab and Haryana, due to several reasons, that planting period has actually been delayed over a bit of time. Again, we can discuss on that some other day, but there is a reason why this has been delayed, which is why when the rice also takes more time to ripen, and by the time it is harvested, there's very little time left for the soil to regain fertility. Soils, once they use up, a certain crop uses up the fertility, the nutrients do get washed up in that crop itself, and so it takes time for the fertility to recover. So by the time the wheat crop can be planted, between that period, there is a fallow period. You need to keep it fallow for a few months, at least for a month, a few weeks more than a month. That has to be the minimum period, but that is no longer affordable due to the later planting of the summer crop. बिकॉज इतना कम टाइम बाकी रहता है, तो इसीलिए दे burn the stubble, because that leads to space being created. One, they don't have time to for the more sustainable, shall we say, a deposit of the same. There is this ash also leads to fertility being created, because that leads to manure formation. Unfortunately, who suffers? Delhi suffers very badly because the winds flow in Delhi's direction. Delhi is already a polluted city because of the fact that there are so many vehicles and factories around Delhi. So on top of this, this creates a massive cloud of smoke on Delhi. Every year it is happening. A lot of solutions have been suggested in the past, but I think this one, which the Delhi government has proposed, might go on to become a something which can really change things. So this new technology has come up from the Pusa Agricultural Institute, which is quite a respected university in terms of agricultural sciences. The Delhi Minister, Environment Minister, Sri Gopal Rai, he has actually gone through, studied this thing. So what happens here is that the stubble can be converted into manure, and this way the stubble need not be burnt as such. And there is very much minimal expenditure in this. All you need to do is there are these capsules which are available, which the Pusa Institute will be supplying. The Delhi government or the other state governments will need to buy them. And this has to be mixed in water and sprayed on the straw. So that straw, which is the byproduct, उसके ऊपर आपको spray करना है वो capsule जो कि water, okay, पानी लिया उसमें capsule डाला, that forms a sort of a mix, and that has to be sprayed in certain quantities on the straw. ठीक है, उससे वो अपने आप डिकम्पोज होके मैन्योर बन जाता है. लुक्स ग्रेट. Of course, we don't know as yet how it works. Maybe on a pilot project, it can be implemented in some areas. I'm sure all the neighboring states of Delhi should also cooperate in this. Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, the Western UP is mainly the one which is into this, because that was also positively affected by the Green Revolution. Right. Several other things have been suggested. In fact, I read an article a couple of years back where one of the agricultural scientists, he spoke about how India needs a goat revolution, and that stubble can actually be consumed very easily by goats. That will solve the pollution problem. It will also create maybe goat's milk, goat's meat, which is mutton, that can also be sourced from that route. So, a couple of things which can take place. I spoke to you earlier about Sri Nitin Gadkari contacting COVID-19. Even the Delhi BJP chief, Mr. Adesh Gupta, he has also tested positive for COVID-19. In fact, I told you yesterday, 17 members of the BJP office in Delhi had been found positive for COVID-19, which is why the BJP office is going to be freshly sanitized. Right. Moving on to the next page, there's much farmer agitation in Haryana and Punjab. There is also a bit in Western UP. So yesterday it did reach quite a heavy stir, organized by the Kisan Mazdoor Sangharsh Samiti. So lots of cities in Punjab seem to have been badly affected. Lots of there are these big pictures which are emerging. This is primarily to protest against the three recent ordinances which have been passed in Parliament. There's, of course, the Essential Commodities Act, which is going to remove cereals, pulses, oilseeds, potato, and onions from trade restrictions and price control. So there is this fear that this will only benefit large farmers who own 10 acres or more areas of land, 10 hectares or more, and also the middlemen, but it will not benefit the vast majority of farmers. So the ruling Congress in Punjab, the opposition AAP also in Congress, also in Punjab, also one of the members of the alliance, the Akali Dal, who are in power at the center, they are not happy with this. Also, the opposition Congress and the opposition INLD in Haryana, they are all opposed to this particular thing. However, the Chief Minister of Punjab, Captain Amrinder Singh from the Congress, he has asked the people not to violate the distancing norms. Do protest, peacefully protest, but please do not violate Section 144 of the Penal Code, thus breaking the distancing norms. And also to let vehicles pass, not to block the thing. And talking of Haryana, the leader of the opposition, Sri Bhupinder Singh Hooda, who's a two-time chief minister, uh, he uh, he says he wants to speak to the governor of Haryana, Sri Satyadev Narayan Arya, regarding a special assembly session in the Haryana Assembly for these three agricultural bills. Right. Moving on from the extreme north of the country, which is Punjab and Haryana, I move to the complete northeast of the country. So talking of states Mizoram and Tripura, and I've spoken to you earlier about the Bru tribe, also known as the Riangs, also known as the Tuk Tuks. They are originally from Mizoram, but after some clashes, ethnic clashes in 1977, they were displaced, and since then many have been living uh, on refugee territory in the state. Sorry, in 1997, not 1970, 97. That's 25 years back, 23 years back. So they have been living on these refugee lands, but in neighboring states. But the state of Tripura had earlier allocated 6 camps in the northern Tripura region, and this was actually approved initially by a body. The name of the body. Yeah, it's a JMC, which is a Joint Movement Committee, which had members of the, which had Mizos as well as Bengalis. Bengalis are the majority in Tripura, comprising more than 70% of the state. So Bengalis and Mizos, they were there, and this joint group, they approved for this land for the Bru community. Later on, some members of these dominant communities, which is Bengalis and Mizos, also objected. But now, on top of that, even fellow Brus have objected. In fact, there are Brus there are native brews in the state of Tripura as well. They go by the name Riang, and they say that their land is as it is, not very productive, not so fertile. It is remote, not well connected by roads. On top of that, if you have more outsiders, it will lead to further thinning out of resources. It will also affect, they say, their traditional forms of agriculture. Remember, these are Schedule 6 areas, which means that the tribals of the northeast, many of them, they have access to a traditional tribal lifestyle, which say the Schedule 5 tribals in mainland India do not have the rights. So they can practice something called jhum, which is shifting agriculture, something which is almost unthinkable in mainland India, because obviously that could affect the soil fertility and land ownership laws, but that is followed very differently in the northeast among the nomadic tribals. So it is fellow Brus who are now opposing the permanent resettlement of the Bru refugees from Mizoram. Moving on to the editorial page, there's an article by Mr. Joel Simon, who's the executive director of the Committee to Protect Journalists. So he speaks about the pandemic and a free press, how India is really proud to be the world's largest democracy, but not so proud to have the maximum COVID-19 cases. He says that during the COVID-19 cases, the free press has been sort of sidelined, undermined by various pressures, and he's in fact harping back that even before the COVID-19, it was a common thing for journalists to be shot at or be attacked, and so that is how he says things are going to change now. The, so already things were not very good, and not many people would be imprisoned for these crimes, but now it is further not taking place. There's also an article by Mr. Arjun Subramaniam, who's a retired Air Vice Marshal, which is like the second highest post in the Indian Air Force. He's also a historian and author of a forthcoming book called The Full Spectrum, India's Wars 1972 to 2020. So in this book, he's going to cover 50 years of warfare by the Indian Armed Forces. Uh, so he speaks about the name of the article is To the Brink and Back in Ladakh. The subheadline, let me read out to you, is at the heart of China's actions lies a historical strategy that India needs to address with great tact. So he says that the recent interaction between our External Affairs Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, and his Chinese counterpart, Mr. Wang Yi, there are two possibilities. One of them is that China will genuinely track back away from its aggressive maneuvers. The other is that this will just be one more of the smoke screens which China has laid out many times. In fact, the newspaper of China called the Global Times, which is an English language pro Communist Party newspaper, they have, without mentioning India, because for them India is just one more country, there's so many neighboring countries, they are saying that there is a need for Chinese civilians to be prepared for a war. In fact, the People's Republic of China, which is the PRC, has also spoken about a five-finger strategy, which even Mao had. Mao is generally rejected in modern China as somebody who brought China quite backward, but in this particular regard, even his policy has been sort of spoken of. So this talks about Arunachal Pradesh as being one of those five. Arunachal Pradesh in China is often known as Southern Tibet, and look at the other four: Bhutan, Sikkim, Nepal, and Ladakh. So all five of them could eventually be part of the Chinese axis. That is what China has plans for. Right. However, Mr. Subramaniam also says that China is not as well prepared as many people would have us believe, because one of the things is China is not well prepared when it comes to high altitude warfare. That is where the Indian side has an advantage. Also, India tends to hold the higher grounds, even if one is not an expert on military. This is easy to understand that whoever is on higher ground, when it comes to mountain warfare, they will certainly have an advantage. He's also lauding India's navy, which has been fairly aggressive on the seas around India against aggressive Chinese maneuvers. Right. Moving on, there's a third article which I want to talk to you about. It is about beyond the barriers of disability. I'll read out to you the sub headline. It says the differently abled community offers a vast potential that can be tapped with the right steps. This article written by Mr. Eric Fault, who is director of UNESCO New Delhi and also the UNESCO representative to some of our neighboring countries such as Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, and Maldives. So in this article, he speaks about how it's been almost 75 years since the UN Charter was declared. In fact, the UN Human Rights Charter was read out, I think, in 1948. I think it was 10th of December, which is why we commemorate that day as Human Rights Day. So he speaks how the UN was committed to bringing equality at a time when much of the world was not really aware of this thing. But still, in order to actually comply with what the UN wanted and what the UN wants, there is a lot more to be done. In fact, he says the world's largest minority are the differently abled. As per several estimates, around 15% of all humans on Earth have some form of disability. 15% of the world's population is about a billion, basically, because the world population is about 7.5 billion. So it's a billion people who have disabilities of some kind. 80% of them are in the developing countries where the protection is even lesser. Often when we do something for people who are disabled, when governments do, it is thought of as a favor. However, that attitude has to go out. This is a basic human right which needs to be taken in consideration. In fact, goal number 4 of the SDGs. SDGs were launched at the start of the last decade. Replace the Millennium Development Goals with 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So, goal number 4 is actually something which looks into a more robust legal strategy to help people with disabilities. There is also this network which has been formed known as the GLAD network, which is Global Action on Disability, and this plans to have this is a network which plans to raise awareness about the various problems. Some leading members have been named, people who are from the disabled community but who've done exceptionally well, such as Stevie Wonder, the singer, who would often he was himself blind and he would often bring notice to the difficult lives. There's also Andrea Bocelli, who the Italian um, operatic, and then there is Deepa Malik, who's the Indian, athlete, para athlete. They have been named as the shining light, people who have, in spite of their many hurdles, gone out and done extremely well. Uh, there's an article by Ms. Shikha Agarwal. She's a regular writer, I think. Here, she is a um, okay, no, I may have been confused with somebody else because this is a separate profile. She is a Ministry of Affairs Taiwan fellow at the National Chengchi University, which is in Taiwan, as you can understand, working with Taiwan. So we have this general image of Xi Jinping, the president of China, as being a very federally strong person, somebody with no challenges. However, she says that there are lots of internal rumblings within China. The domestic security landscape is not looking as good for him as it once was. So she's actually written a detailed article on this particular issue. There's also an article which speaks in detail about the Middle Eastern case. I think you guys are all aware the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, two Arabic speaking countries, both are prosperous GCC members, and they have both tied up with Israel to normalize relations. They now become the third and fourth Arabic countries to have some kind of diplomatic ties with Israel. The first two were Egypt in 1979 and Jordan in 1994. There are a couple of differences here, however. Egypt was a country which directly fought a war against Israel in 1967. Jordan is right neighbor of Israel. So these are two countries with which Israel could have had problems and issues. So these were actually on paper, and when it comes to the real implementation, very important. UAE is a prosperous country, a very rich country, but does it have a very strong military? No, nothing compared to Egypt, which is the most powerful Arabic country when it comes to military. Has an overall population in the country of about 100 million. Uh, Bahrain is even smaller than UAE. So in that sense, the direct relations may be a little less. We might be reading too much into it. However, Saudi Arabia's entry might further propel this thing. Saudi is as yet, because the person who's in charge of Saudi, he is he's pretty old right now, so he does not want to take sweeping decisions. Um, Mohammed bin Salman is the heir to the throne, so once he becomes fully the king, things might change a bit. As of now, what's happening is Saudi has allowed commercial aviation on its airspace, so Israeli flyers can move on top of Saudi or move into UAE or Bahrain. And I think that is a great move. In fact, Bahrain is heavily dependent on Saudi for its military defense and for its financials. So the very fact that Bahrain has gone out and done friendship with Israel is a clear marker that Saudi might also be along that path. Yeah, his name is Salman bin Abdullah, the present leader. He's pretty old right now, so that's why he's treading cautiously. However, this raises a couple of questions, this entire movement. One of them is about the Arab Peace Initiative, which was started in 2002. What about that? What about the Palestinian movement? Understandably, there are many rumblings within Palestine regarding what is going to happen of their movement. So, of course, that needs to be taken care of. Forging relations with Israel cannot happen at the cost of the ordinary Palestinians who are suffering. So, that too needs to be taken into account. There are lots of non-Arab but Islamic countries which are actually uh, positioning themselves in a way that with the Arabs retreating, Arabs giving more importance to economy and American power. This is something where other countries could actually step in, most notably Turkey and Iran. These are two countries which have really powerful militaries, they have ambitions, and they might actually take up the Palestinian cause. Now that the leading Arab countries seem to have given up, they don't seem to be interested. Turkey, by the way, is a country which Pakistan is also trying to get pretty close to right now. So that way there could be some local issues which might arise in our backyard as well, right? These accords, they are together known as the Abraham Accords, possibly named after Abraham, who was these three religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, they are known as the Abrahamic faiths, because Abraham, he's a biblical character, and he's considered the father of all these three religions, because these three religions, they all emerged in the same area. They all follow some of the basic tenets. The Old Testament in the Bible, for instance, is followed in all the three religions. They're together known as the Abrahamic faiths. So anyway, these Abraham Accords, have been among the few success stories of the Trump administration's diplomacy. It's barely 50 days away, the elections in the USA to start. So this was something he did need after the terrible, diplomatic moves involving Iran. Even with North Korea, he did succeed initially, but finally, not much could take place. Finally, from this page, there is an article by Mr. Rajiv Bhargav, or I should say Professor Rajiv Bhargav. He is from the Center CSDS, which is Center for the Study of Developing Societies. He has spoken, I'll be brief, about three forms of nationalism. One of them is ethno-religious, which is based on a certain ethnicity and a certain religion. You can say the Hindutva form of nationalism in India, or the Islamic form of nationalism in Pakistan. These could somewhat, and he's talking specifically from the South Asian context. So this is one of the forms. The second form, there is no word actually for that. So he uses the term civic nationalism, something which the Congress was very much in support of, which does not look at any particular religion or ethnicity, instead looking at a shared history such as the British colonial rule, ideas which have emanated from different cultural sources. There is a third which is based on a certain linguistic identity, which is something we did see a lot, especially in the 50s and 60s. First there was Andhra Pradesh, for example, that was created for Telugu speaking people because of agitation. The States Reorganization Act created several linguistic states, with Gujarat and Maharashtra being created from Bombay, Haryana being separated from Punjab. Later on, there were tribal movements and linguistic movements in states like Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand, Jharkhand. They were all carved out. So this is the third form of, shall we say, uh, nationalism, which is based on linguistic or local area. Again, language may not be the same, but a particular local geography, right? So this is what he is talking about, basically, Mr. Bhargav, that we need a certain form of federalism which can take care of all these different forms, which can actually imbibe certain elements from all of these. Right, fair enough. I'm done with the editorial page. Moving on to the next couple of pages. The Kerala government has been reducing salaries of government staff for the past several months due to the COVID-19. Now the government has announced that for another 6 months, salaries will be cut for government employees. They have never been withheld. They have been paid. It's just that they'll be reduced somewhat. The Kerala government has also eased norms for the COVID-19. So ones who are asymptomatic patients, they can now start working once again. Also, migrants can now re-enter Kerala, the migrant labor, although they will require a 14-day quarantine period post their testing. Right, fair enough. JP Nadda, who's the national president of the BJP, he has asserted that the MSP is here to stay. All these protests in Punjab, Haryana, the farmer protests, they are primarily because the lot of farmers, they fear MSP is going to be taken away. Mr. Nadda has denied any such rumors. He says it is pretty much here to stay. This is only for benefit of the farmers. They can now sell anywhere in the country. Let's see how this goes on. Talking of bills being passed, now that the parliament has met, agriculture was one of the things that was in consideration. Now we also need to look into the Banking Act. Now there is a Banking Regulation Act 1949, which will also now be amended. This was something which was tabled by the Finance Minister, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman. So these new norms will come into place primarily to tackle the incident which happened with the PMC, or the Punjab and Maharashtra Cooperative Bank. You might be aware that a lot of people lost a lot of the money from there. So that such things do not take place in the future, now there is this decision that the cooperative banks can now be controlled better by the RBI. Till now, there were multiple regulatory bodies. I'll just connect the charger. Give me a moment, please. Yeah. Yeah, so I was talking about these banks, the mm, cooperative banks. So there are 430 cooperative banks that have been delicensed or liquidated over the past 2 decades. Although not a single commercial bank has gone into this thing. That's because these were not well regulated by the RBI. Now they will be regulated by the RBI. So hopefully things will become better. Right then, moving on to the next page. Right now, it's been confirmed that Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu comprise about 60 to 70, 60% of the active cases um, in the country. The US Special Envoy, who did arrive in India yesterday, Mr. Zalmay Khalilzad, he has praised India's role in the Afghan talks, and he says that India's role has been vital. Some of you might be aware that the parliament is going to have a new building. It's known as the new Central Vista. For that, the lowest bid will be accepted, keeping in line what often takes place in government projects. So the Tata Project Limited's bid has been the lowest, priced at 861 crore. So it is likely that the Tata will be given this particular contract. These bids were opened by the CPWD or Central Public Works Department. Second lowest was Larsen and Toubro, which is 865 crore bid. So now let's see how things will work here. A plea has been put in by the Congress Rajya Sabha MP, Mr. Partap Singh Bajwa, to include Punjabi as one of the official languages of Jammu and Kashmir. Right. Moving on, there is this report about this person, Mr. Abhishek Gulshan. He writes these articles every week on this particular day, which is Thursday, about various animals and birds. So this week he has written about a particular butterfly, which is the Danid egg fly. And he speaks about how the article is very well, shall we say, the headline is really apt. It says "Mimic to survive." So what happens is there are certain species which are poisonous, which when they are consumed by the predators will themselves die or at least suffer very badly. Which is why these butterflies, the Danite egg fly, they actually imitate the color of the plain tiger butterfly, which is similar in terms of size, and because they imitate those colors, a lot of the potential predators they leave out these butterflies as well. This mimicking is predominantly done by the male of the species because they are the ones who go out. Females are many more in number because they, of course, need to care for the next generation. They are more cautious. They stay in their places. The males, their primary job is to mate. So they are the ones who do a lot of the flying, but they do not get, shall we say, captured. This is a common method of defense, often known as Batesian, because this has been named after the English naturalist. His name is Henry. His name was Henry Walter Bates, who first identified this system. Right. Now, moving on to the international pages, while Israel has signed peace agreements with a couple of Arabic countries, airstrikes, however, have not stopped. A couple of air bombs were dropped on Gaza territory against some Palestinian Palestinian terrorist areas, which were identified. So, some rockets have been launched there. Donald Trump, meanwhile, is confident that within another month the vaccine could be ready. So, some of the companies like Pfizer and Moderna are the ones who are working specially with the US. Right? He's spoken about a herd mentality which will save them. He probably meant herd immunity. There is a latest survey which has come out by an organization called AAPI on Indian Americans and whom they will vote for. So apparently 66%, while 6% are undecided, 6% are undecided out of the rest 94, 66% of Indian Americans are likely to vote for Joe Biden of the Democrats. Only 28% are likely to vote for Donald Trump, who is a Republican. And overall, among Asian Americans as well, 54% are likely to vote for Biden. So that comprises of Asian Americans includes Indians, Chinese, Filipinos, Koreans, uh, Vietnamese, and Japanese. Right? Except for Vietnamese Americans, if you take away Vietnamese Americans, the numbers will be similar to that of Indian Americans. Vietnamese are the only Asians who will vote in greater numbers for Donald Trump. Right, there is some political news of interest to India from the country of Maldives, south of India. Its president, sorry, it's President Mr. Ibrahim Mohammed Soli, who belongs to the ruling MDP or the Maldivian Democratic Party. Yeah, he has been criticized by the opposition, which is the PPM, PNC, or the Progressive Party of Maldives People's National Congress. It's a coalition basically of two parties. So the opposition has criticized his greater friendship with India, which has led to a lot of Indian troops on Maldives mainland. He says that, on the other hand, the president himself says relations with India had to be improved because obviously India is the leading power from this region, and so both these countries can then grow economically as well. So the Asian Development Bank has confirmed that Maldives' economy is likely to contract by 20% this year due to COVID-19 induced factors, but next year it will recover, grow once again by 10%. Right, the chief of the European Union, the top position, Ursula von der Leyen, she's herself German. She's the European Commission's president. She has criticized both Turkey and Russia for their muscle flexing. Russia, when it comes to Belarus and the horse trading, which Russia is encouraging in many countries, and Turkey for its militarizing of the Mediterranean Sea. Until few days back, Turkey was sort of militarizing near Cyprus and Greece. Greece also did something counterwise. That the worst seems to be over now. Turkey does seem to be going back. The United Nations feels that the Venezuelan president, Mr. Nicolas Maduro, has committed crimes against humanity. Japan, meanwhile, has welcomed its new Prime Minister, Mr. Suga, Yoshihide Suga, who has replaced Shinzo Abe, who retired recently. And Mr. Suga says that there are two plans now. One is to tackle the virus, the other is to kickstart economy. These two will be the major goals in the next couple of months, which will be his first few. Moving into your favorite page, which is the business page, the RBI director, Mr. Shaktikanta Das, he has said that recovery is not yet entrenched, but it will be gradual. So it's not going to be immediate, but economic recovery will take place. Right, I think this was expected. The domestic air traffic has sort of picked up from the month of July. August saw 34% rise in number of air passengers, domestic air passengers. Trade deficit with China has dropped to $5.5 billion compared to $13.1 billion last year. The Supreme Court, meanwhile, has confirmed that the center, which is the central government in India, needs to pay the Vedanta Mining Corporation $476 million. Vedanta and Videocon, they were working together on a mining project in the Rava area. So, वहाँ पे the two of them, the government had initially wanted to pay 198 million only, but now they have confirmed that the total contract and their dues are worth, the Supreme Court has confirmed, will be worth $476 million. The Exim Bank, or the Export and Import Bank, under the present discussion on Atmanirbhar or self-reliance, they have confirmed that what is import substitution. So they have said $186 billion is worth of import substitution may now be possible. What exactly is import substitution? As the name suggests, it is substituting for imports, because obviously every country in the world and the Indian economy as well has been highly dependent on imports. China has been one of the leading exporters to India. So instead of this thing, the imports can be imports can be managed worth up to the tune of $186 billion domestically itself. So instead of importing, one can actually produce parts in India. A lot of the automobile parts, for instance, a lot of companies such as Suzuki, Maruti Suzuki, they have encouraged Indian companies to produce what they were earlier importing from abroad. Flipkart, which is one of India's leading online retailers, they are eyeing a 2021 international listing. They're now, of course, owned by Walmart, but they're looking at going international in terms of listing by sometime next year. The total tax collection in the entire country has fallen, as per the IT department, income tax department, by 22.5% compared to the same period last year. This is for data up to 15th of September. The ONGC, or the Oil and Natural Gas Corporation, they have quit the country of Sudan due to huge amount of money, $431 million that remains unpaid as yet. The dues have not been met by the government of Sudan. There's this snacking and cafe sort of chain called Desi Tea Time. They have pledged to invest another 30 crore rupees as they it's 25 to 30 crores. It's not confirmed whether it's 30, so 25 to 30, because they want to expand all over the country. They are sourcing tea leaves from over 200 farmers in the northeastern states, and the tea is processed at two factories in that region. However, they will soon start working with tea growers in the southern states as well. They have already got they want to have another 2,000 outlets in all over the country in the next 2 years. They already have about 700 outlets, but they want to increase it to 2,000 plus in the next couple of years. Finally, from the business pages, I want to discuss about this unique phenomena of out migration from the big cities. What's happening is, in the bigger cities, rentals are pretty high. Many people have lost their jobs. Even ones who are doing their jobs, many of them are doing work from home, because many of those people are working in knowledge sectors where having internet connection, having a good laptop with you is good enough. You can earn money from home. So many of these people, they have actually migrated back to small towns or the outskirts of the big cities where the rentals are much lower. So we are seeing the phenomenon of ghost cities in a lot of big cities. Luxury segment has been the worst hit with 30 to 40% correction, while the mid segment has seen a 5 to 10% reduction in the rentals. Even lots of office spaces have now been vacated. In fact, about half the residents of Bengaluru's, posh apartments have apparently left. So the data has been released by Liasis for Us, which is a luxury housing brand, and his name is Mr. Pankaj Kapoor, who's the managing director and CEO, and he says it's been a 30 to 40% reduction in rental collections. So there's also Mr. Amarendra Sahu, who's the CEO of Nestaway Solutions, which is a home rental company, says that more than 60,000 homes have been vacated in 16 cities where he has his company has the business. So rather dire situation for the real estate sector, it seems. So amidst all this gloom, let's finally end the session on a slightly happier note, because I have the sports page with me, and IPL just a few days back, just few days away to start. And all these years have one of the common things on our meme pages has been jokes on the RCB. Forgive me, RCB fans or residents of Bengaluru. In fact, I'm not a regular viewer of the IPL either. I mean, I do watch, but I'm much more of a football fan, so I don't really know the details. But the fact is, RCB has never won the IPL. and that too having, in spite of having Virat Kohli, the greatest batsman in the last decade, they have not won the IPL. There have been a lot of jokes on that. So 13 years of frustration, 12 years. This is the 13th. So can it now be reversed? They've lost finals three times: 2011, 2016, and also 2009, which I remember. I was then in Bangalore. In fact, I was in Karnataka for my summer internship. I was working with the Jungle Lodges and Resorts, which is a Karnataka government body into ecotourism. So I was in the jungles actually, and everybody was supporting Bengaluru. And they were playing Hyderabad in the final. Incidentally, Bangalore and Hyderabad had finished bottom two the year before in the first IPL, but this year they were the two finalists, and Hyderabad defeated Bangalore in the in the second year. I remember that game fully well. Their first game starts in Dubai on the 21st against neighbor Sunrisers Hyderabad. They also play Kings 11 Punjab in Dubai. They have a couple of games in Sharjah and Abu Dhabi as well, but majority of games it seems in Dubai. Virender Sehwag says it will be a pleasure to watch Mahendra Singh Dhoni, possibly for the last time playing, first class, top level cricket. Bangladeshi batsman Saif Hassan has tested positive for COVID-19, while French winger Kingsley Coman, who plays for Bayern Munich, has not tested positive, but he has been kept in isolation because he came into close contact with a COVID-19 positive patient recently. Uh, the president of the AFI, or the Athletics Federation of India, Mr. Adil Sumariwala, says that athletes must be kept on top of the vaccine priority list, while Mr. Gopichand, a legendary badminton player from India, he has spoken about creating a bubble where elite sports persons can test. Moving into the Tour de France, the 17th stage of Tour de France has been won by a Colombian, Miguel Angel Lopez. He's now third in the overall tally. Slovenian Primoz Roglic remains ranked one. He has not been winning a lot of the last few stages, but he's there abouts in all the races. So overall, he remains number one, still wearing the yellow jersey, which is worn by the winner. Right. By the way, the English Premier League began last weekend. The German Bundesliga will restart next weekend, and the Bundesliga is going to be quite critical in one way because this will become the first of the major leagues which will allow some fans. So Borussia Dortmund, which plays in front of 80,000 fans normally, they will allow 10,000 fans as an experiment. So it will be an experiment for a couple of weeks in a number of stadiums. Germany is the first major country that has allowed about 20% of the stadiums to be used. 20% is the maximum. In Dortmund's case, of course, they've used up only 1/8, roughly 12%. Yeah, so that's pretty much how things are. So let's see how much of a success this proves to be. New Zealand did have a couple of full audience rugby matches after it was declared completely COVID free. But then COVID bounced back in New Zealand, although at not such a great level. So let's just see how it works out. Staying with football, there are lots of transfer stories. This is the peak of the transfer season. Leicester City might be able to sign Cengiz Under. That will be a great move. The left-footed Turkish winger plays for AS Roma, one of the hottest young forward players, though he's regressed probably in the last year or so. Leicester City could sign him on loan with a guarantee of buying him later. Tottenham could buy Reguilon from Real Madrid. They could also take former player Gareth Bale, club legend, back on a loan spell for at least a year. So that'll be interesting to have Gareth Bale, Harry Kane, and Son Heung-min as a front three. It'll be quite exciting. Dele Alli just behind them. Um, yeah, these have been a couple of really exciting transfer moves. Manchester United still being linked with Jadon Sancho. Uh, Messi, of course, is staying put at Barcelona right now. So not much of other transfer news that I can think of right now. But Tottenham are getting pretty strong. I think a couple of good moves they are making. Besides Chelsea, of course, did that earlier. Right. I'll just keep the session open for a couple of minutes. This is my code, as I've shared with you guys earlier, AD09. Do like, share, and subscribe. Let me meanwhile search out that Russian company. Because this is something which has been in my mind for so long. Because none of these articles will have, because this is an older information. Do let me know if you have any questions. I've kept the session open for a couple of minutes. Maybe I was mistaken. Maybe there is no single company. It is probably being done in a consortium with several of the players. So fair enough. The session remains open. Do let me know if you guys have any questions here. Wiki में भी देख लेते हैं. Wiki is not always reliable, but at least it will give us an idea. Anyway, fair enough. I don't see any more questions. So let me wrap up for the day. Wonderful interacting with you guys. About an hour, little more than an hour later, I have another session today at mm, at 3 p.m. Sorry, at 4 p.m. So that will be on Indian history, ancient Indian history. That's on unacademy.com. So do watch out for that. Till then, thank you so much. See you all very soon.